Speaking of other things you're working on, I wanted to switch gears here and spend a few minutes talking about Covehithe, your other project that is live right now. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here because I have this queued up here, so we can talk through this. But maybe you could just talk really quickly about Covehithe. This is through Virtu Fine Art. There is an art exhibition that will be this weekend. I believe it starts on July 15th. Is that right, Harvey?
30th, I think.
I'm sorry, apologies. July
13th through
13th.
16th. Yeah.
13th through 16th in the Hamptons. And you have 60 pieces here that are really beautiful, stunning. These are meant to be physical pieces first. And they are currently on sale. And maybe you could just talk a little bit about the art itself. I know you've written about this, but maybe you could rehash that here for the audience, the inspiration behind this art and where folks can go if they want to collect one of these.
Right. So, I mean, in contrast to Quasi Dragon Studies, this is like leaning in the total opposite direction, right? This is my project, which I'm trying to expose myself to a wider collector base in the gallery art world. And so, they're sold more traditionally. Stephen, who I'm working with at Virtue Gallery, is doing a great job at kind of handling the sales. And, he put together this site and so forth, and even a physical catalog. So, but the project was it was I call it like a landscape, my kind of like attempt to find an algorithmically authentic way to approach landscape. And what I mean by that is like not trying to make literal landscapes with mountains and what have you, but looking at the kind of component parts of the landscape, the way the space recedes, texture, sort of the feeling of the space. I wanted to make a project that explored that in a kind of just an authentic, algorithmic way, and also the distress you see. When you see these in print, they've got layers of texture, and they kind of. I wanted to make something that looked like it'd been washed up on the seashore. Like Covehithe is a place I used to live in England, which was this kind of very sort of primordial coastline, and I'd often find things washed up on the beach, and I wanted it to look like it had been weathered by the elements, and again, I feel increasingly that when you distress a surface, that is an algorithmic process. You've got a certain collection of movements which are constrained in a certain way, which wear on a surface, whether it be wind or erosion, and recreating this in an algorithmic way. You can do this in a very sort of authentically or algorithmic way in code. It just lends itself to that. So I feel like it's a natural step to take to kind of making these kind of very textured and worn surfaces.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, the reality is getting to differential equations and other math that I have forgotten or never knew. That's how it happens in the real world, right? Like wind follows math. Right. As does water and erosion and all that. And that's brilliant. I love it. And it seems like you employed your sort of signature generative color to this as well, right? Where you don't have color palettes, but the colors themselves are generative as well.
Exactly. Yeah. To be honest, I can't imagine myself ever going back to this set of palettes anymore, because the color algorithm is always just another kind of domain to explore. I love working like this, and then it's so much more surprising when the mints come out, and you get so much more variety and personality for each one. So.
Right. No, these are absolutely beautiful, and as you and I talked about this one before. So these are physicals first. So the NFT is truly the proof of ownership here. But these are meant to be physical pieces that are, all of them are already printed, correct, and will be sale as prints.
They're not all printed quite yet, but I mean, over the next few months, they'll get printed and signed and shipped off to the collectors. But yeah, there's a chip. There's a chip that comes with each print. We don't attach them to the print. It's up to the collector whether they stick it on the frame or not. But we provide like a conventional art world certificate with the chip, and then they can use that chip to scan and then access the NFT. So then the idea, if they want to sell the print at some point, that chip should go with it.
Got it. And then the person who receives the chip can then sort of claim it onto their wallet.
Exactly. Yeah, but there's no. It's not an NFT like we would normally use to buy and to trade. It's just an extra level of authentication. So this really is the people, the audience I'm trying to sell this work to, or Stephen is typically they're a little bit scared. Often they're quite scared of NFTs, and so we're keeping it very much in the background. And hopefully the work just stands, just as a beautiful print and excites people just on that level without even talking about the fact that it's generative or there's an NFT there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they will. I mean, we get caught up in the details, but especially with your work, it is table stakes to have beautiful art. And there's certainly that. There's many of these that I would love to have up on my wall. And so I think it's brilliant. I mean, in just this one conversation, we're talking about going from all the way on the far side of Web3 and utilizing networks and blockchain and to create these composites with that algorithm, to the opposite end where we're really talking about traditional art, but with still a flavor of Web3. I think I really like what they're doing at Virtu with having the physical be the primary, but still in kind of introducing the blockchain a little bit in a way that probably resonates more easily with traditional art collectors in terms of having that proof of ownership be digitally verifiable, but the unit that matters not being that record on the blockchain, but the physical still being the thing that really matters there.
Right. Yeah, I really do feel like that we there's a lot of conversation around bridging the gap and so forth, and I think the way we do that is through making art that works well in both worlds and doesn't try to foist anything on any particular group. So I imagine people who collect this work from the gallery art world and then learn subsequently they've got an NFT and then they start to follow my work, then that's the bridge into what I'm doing in Web3, I feel. But I'm not doing it by trying to be an Web3 evangelist. What do you call it? Evangelist. Evangelist, that's the word. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, this is awesome. So for folks who are in the New York, Hamptons area, July 13th through the 16th, we'll get this clip out ahead of time, Harvey. And for anybody who's not going to be in the area but is interested in collecting one of these, how might they go about doing that? Who could they reach out to?
Maybe you can include Stephen's contact and Stephen from Virtue Gallery. They can go to the Virtue Gallery website and look at the email there, or we can include it in the show notes.